Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. Mabuhay. For somebody who's been teaching for 27 years and still counting, I could say that I really am nervous today. It's as if it's my first day in class. So anyway, so thank you, Dirk, and thank you, Cordula, for inviting us. For today, the structure of our presentation will be in two parts. I have with me my partner, the former dean of the UP Asian Institute of Tourism. We both started the Batanes Observatory. So Eddie Sir will be talking about the background of the observatory, while I will make sense of that word gestalt that's supposed to be letter G. It's a gestalten approach in understanding the participatory approach as in the Batanes case. So over to you.
Well, thank you, Mary Ann. We just want to say that we represent the Observatory of Batanes in the Philippines. We became a member of INSTO just last year in May. Now, Batanes is a small island. It looks big on the map, but it's really very tiny on top of the Philippines. It's the northernmost part of the Philippines. It's actually closer to Taiwan than to the mainland of the Philippines. And there are three main islands. The main island is Batan here, and then Sabtang and Itbayat. And overall, there's just probably 17, 18,000 people in these islands. But tourism activity prior to the pandemic was very vigorous, with tourism volume three times the local population. And what makes it very interesting as an observatory is that it's the only province declared as a protected area. The entire province is a protected area, and it's the only province that has that declaration or status in the Philippines. It's also an ancestral domain. So the issue of governance is very important because there's a conflict between those who run the province from an environmental point of view, being a protected area, and those who want to assert the identity of the island being a place of indigenous peoples. And it's in the UNESCO World Heritage Tentative List. It has a very unique ecosystem and a place of strong emotional appeal for the people of Batanes. We call them the Ibatans. The place is very beautiful, and the people of Batanes believe it's the last place touched by God. No, so geographically speaking, it's again very small, 10 islands, but not all are inhabited. There's only 6 municipalities that comprise the province. In terms of tourism, the backbone is domestic tourism, but international tourists come from the US, Germany, China, South Korea, and Australia. Okay, so in terms of governing this area and running the observatory, what we've done is to set up a tourism and hospitality monitoring center that is jointly managed by the University of the Philippines, that's where we come from, the provincial government of Batanes, the Tourism and Heritage section, and the local college called the Batanes State College. And we were able to encourage the governor to issue an executive order. This is the second iteration of that executive order to create a technical working group composed mainly of stakeholders from the province. So you have here all the line agencies, all the major departments from each of the municipality and the provincial government. as well as representatives from the civil society and from the business sector, the tourism associations of Batanes. Absent here, of course, is one thing that we've been talking about this morning, the national government. But we are looking at, well, they support, of course, this initiative. We've been able to get their endorsement for the stakeholder, but it's basically the work of people behind this technical working group, and the organizations that make the running of the observatory more or less smooth for all of us. Again, we were accepted into INSTO last year, and here we have the Secretary of Tourism actually herself, leading the acceptance of the recognition from the Secretary General of UNWTO. Now, in terms of the core issues, we have committed ourselves to monitoring all these areas, but of course, initially we are working only on just a few issues. So it's destination economic benefits, governance, local satisfaction, solid waste management, and based on our consultations with the local communities, cultural integrity, biodiversity, and carrying capacity were added into the mix, because these are issues that's very important to the local community. And so we've dedicated resources to looking at these issues. Now, I turn you over to Mary Ann so that she can discuss some findings from our study on local satisfaction, an area that is actually uh, not generally studied in terms of tourism development and management in the country. So it's the first time that it's been done, in the provinces. Thank you.
So, uh, to make sense of this Gestalt approach to understanding the participatory nature in the observatory, or involving the stakeholders in the process, we conducted a study on local satisfaction, and primarily the overarching objective is to provide a baseline data, right, of residents' view on tourism impact and their notion of sustainability, and place meaning to aid policy recommendations and adjustments for the island's long-term sustainability. Edisor mentioned that Batanes is composed of three major islands. So you see Batan, Basque. We have the six municipalities across these three major islands. So we could say that these three major islands were well represented, right? Resulting to 1,056, sorry about that, the figures, 1,056 respondents across these three uh, islands. So we conducted a pilot test, but the critical point here is that in that questionnaire, we included 5 sections to including the degrees of agreement with items regarding their impacts of tourism, their feelings and meanings of place, their notion of what sustainability is, what constitutes sustainability, the measures of physical carrying capacity, governance, and waste management practices. Now the results are actually in the website of Breathtaking Batanes, but in the interest of time, I'll just focus on the results of the resident satisfaction. So just for the demographic characteristics, majority are male, single, and full-time employed, and the largest segment represents 36 to 65 years of age. Now, here's the interesting part. Okay, well, now this one shows that the residents Embrace tourism with all might, right? The economic factor, however, it must be consistent with their cultural and environmental assets. Now, what is even more interesting is this. Based on the aggregated data, as you could see, culture and environment accounted for the majority's notion of what constitutes sustainability, suggesting 53% of the response rate. But then we have to disaggregate the data. And when we disaggregated the data, we saw there are island differences in terms of the Ivatan's notion of what sustainability is. For example, for Itbayat. Itbayat is the largest island in Batanes. However, it's quite difficult to reach Itbayat from the center or from the airport, which is located in Batan Island, and resulting to what? Less economic activity. Difficult would mean you have to take a ferry, embrace the choppy or the rough water for 3 hours, or take a chopper or a small airplane and pay for quite a lot or a bundle. So economic imperatives are really low in Itbayat. Henceforth, for the Ivatans who live in Itbayat, economic aspect defines their notion of what sustainability is. Interestingly, in Sabtang, Edisor mentioned about Batanes listed at the UNESCO Heritage Tentative List owing to these strips of old stone houses which are all located in Sabtang. Henceforth, what defines the Ivatan's notion of sustainability is not economic, but culture. And last but not the least, in the context of environment, Batan, where you will find the airport in that small island, suffers, Ivatan suffers from Batan Island suffers environment issues, solid waste in particular. And Marian is here. I presented some data during in China during their MCSDO. Believe it or not, that one municipality called Basco, which is found again in Batan, produces 500 kilos of solid waste per day. Sources, residents, and tourists. But surprisingly, during the pandemic, much of the complaints about solid waste from the residents, not the tourists, because borders were closed. So obviously, it's the local residents. So this is really interesting. And again, nearing the end of my presentation, this is where Gestalt comes into play. In the inner circle, you will see the object at the core. There is a shared meaning and purpose among the stakeholders. For the Ivatans, well-preserved natural and cultural environment while promoting heritage conservation and social equity. Now, around that circle, you see 5 words, and those are the objectives of the observatory. That is our role to capacitate, create capacity building, to create awareness of what sustainability is. Second would be conducting methodological references and recommendations, context bound or according to the needs of the invatants. Third, systematic monitoring and evaluation of indicator sets. All our indicator sets were identified by them, not by us, by the stakeholders. We have their commitment, they signed, we periodically get in touch with them, we communicate. If we cannot travel to Batanes, we make sure we meet via Zoom or any other platforms for that matter. And last is empowered and inclusive decision making and policy making. You will see what does those colored letters mean, the context of this unitary process, what Gestalt is, requires us to understand sustainability in a way that is focused on the conditions within which these issues are structured. See, go back to the three differences among, they're all Ivatans, but then different notions of what sustainability is. And as well, their notion of sustainability is very tight to resilience, but their definition of resilience is very much tied to community cooperation. This I mentioned that it's located in the northernmost part of the Philippines. Recently, Typhoon Kraton hit Batanes. No one could give help at that particular moment, so they could not really rely to anyone else except for the Ivatans, except their the locals as well. And last but not the least, we keep on saying transformative. We want change, right? But change is a social process. And by social process, I want to go back to that idea underpinned by conditions within which the issues of sustainability are structured. And second, taking into account the locals' notion of what resilience is, which is very much tied to their culture. Second to the last slide, if I remember right, what I want to emphasize here is this context of input, output, throughput. I cited the case of resident satisfaction as an example in which the output of our survey becomes the input as we now look into another critical area in Batanes, which is the issue of food security. We are trying to look at the conditions through the tourism opportunities spectrum, and then, but a requisite there is you have to know the acceptability impacts from visitors and residents' use. So again, the output from our survey becomes an input for this another initiative that we're looking to. And then looking at the social process, which is the throughput. Again, you will see similar words, social process. But of course, we want to highlight the importance of stakeholders being part of the loop. And last but not the least, for the policy aspect, right, it flows back to the stakeholders. And again, it's a cycle. Henceforth, just all 10. So in conclusion, Evatan's view of long-term sustainability warrant micro, macro, and meso levels of analysis, not one-shot survey. And we know that, right? The resident favored tourism development consistent with its characteristic of Batanes as a protected area and the culture and heritage of the islands. Their strong sense of place as an IP, living in a protected area, 100% landscape, seascape, is fostered by the combinatorial aspects of their satisfaction that is governed by the satisfaction of their needs living in mutual benefits with nature which is actually their home and family alike, and the conditions within which these needs are structured. This is the last one. See this guy? He is a tour guide. As I speak, we are doing a survey on tourist satisfaction. And because of Typhoon Hulyan or Kraton, questionnaires were wiped out and tore. But then you know what Winston did? He went back. When the water is gone from his house, he went to the tourism office and requested for a copy of the questionnaire, so he could continue with the survey. So with that, I thought, well, the team must be doing our best. We must have done, we must have been on the right track because he has that mindset, okay, I have to continue the survey, even if the waters have, the questionnaire wiped out, but we are committed to sustainability, the Evatans context. And this one are just to show the cooperation, the community cooperation following the aftermath of Typhoon Hulyan. So with that, thank you. Maraming salamat. Muchas gracias.